The big metal station floated in space between the stars. Inside, creatures from many different worlds sat around a huge round table. The room was bright with alien lights, and the air smelled like a mix of different atmospheres that each species needed to breathe. Commander Zethkar was the first to speak. He was tall and covered in green scales like a giant lizard. His yellow eyes looked at the screen in front of him with amusement. Next to him sat Captain Veltara, whose body was made of something that looked like living crystal. She sparkled when she moved, and her voice sounded like wind chimes when she laughed. "So the humans want to join our war council," Zethkar said, his forked tongue flicking out as he spoke. "Have any of you looked at their old stories? They think their ancestors fought flying lizards that breathed fire." The laughter started small, but grew louder. General Thokran was a massive creature that looked like a bear crossed with a gorilla. His fur was silver, and when he laughed, his whole body shook. He hit the table with his huge paw, making all the smaller aliens jump. "Dragons!" Thokran roared with laughter. "They believe in dragons. What kind of warriors are afraid of made-up monsters?" Around the table, 12 different species were represented. There were bug-like creatures with too many eyes, fish people with gills that moved when they breathed, and bird-like beings with colorful feathers. All of them had fought in real wars across the galaxy. All of them had seen real battles and real death. To them, human stories seemed like children's fairy tales. Zethkar touched his control pad, and images appeared in the air above the table. The holograms showed pictures from human books and movies. There were men in metal armor fighting giant dragons. There were warriors with swords bigger than themselves. There were heroes who could lift mountains and run faster than the wind. "Look at this one," Zethkar said, pointing at a picture of a muscular man holding up a building. "They call him Hercules. He supposedly had the strength of a god and could complete impossible tasks." More laughter filled the room. Navigator Piptel was a small blue creature with big eyes and fins instead of hands. She lived underwater on her home planet, and her voice was high and squeaky. "How stupid can one species be?" she said between giggles. They actually believed someone could wrestle with lions and win. The images kept changing. Stories of human heroes appeared one after another. There was a man named Achilles who could not be hurt except for one spot on his foot. There was a warrior called Beowulf who fought monsters with his bare hands. There were tales of humans who could split rocks with their fists and jump over tall buildings. "This is the best one," said Colonel Zextos, a purple creature with tentacles instead of arms. "They have a story about a man named Samson who brought down an entire temple just by pushing on 2 pillars with his hands." Can you imagine? The alien warriors could not stop laughing. They had fought against robots that could crush steel. They had battled creatures that could eat through metal. They had seen weapons that could destroy whole planets. But humans believed in stories about people who got strong by eating spinach, or who could fly by believing hard enough. "And the gods," Captain Valtara said, her crystal body shimmering with mirth. "They think their ancestors talked to gods and fought against them. Some of their stories say humans actually won battles against divine beings." War Admiral Jake Morrison sat quietly at his place at the table. He was 50 years old, with gray hair and lines on his face that came from years of worry and fighting. His uniform was clean and simple compared to the fancy armor and decorations that the other species wore. Jake was the only human in the room, and he had earned his place at this table through actions, not through politics or family connections. But even though Jake had proven himself in battle, the other species still saw humans as the new kids who did not belong with the real warriors. They respected him just enough to let him sit at the table, but they did not really think humans could fight in a serious war. "Tell me, Admiral Morrison," General Thokran said, his voice still shaking with laughter. "Do you actually believe these stories? Do humans really think their ancestors could do magic?" Jake looked up from his hands, which had been folded quietly on the table. His brown eyes were calm, but there was something behind them that made a few of the aliens stop, laughing. "What makes you think they are just stories?" he asked. This made the laughter get even louder. Sithkar hit his control pad again, and more human myths appeared in the air. There were pictures of men lifting cars over their heads, women who could run faster than horses, and warriors who could fight 100 enemies at once and win. "Because they are impossible," Captain Veltara said, her crystal form flashing bright colors. "No creature can be that strong without technology or genetic changes. Your species does not even have natural armor, or claws, or poison. You are just soft pink things that break easily." "We have studied human biology," added Dr. Quintal, a thin gray creature with a large head and big black eyes. "Your bones are weak. Your muscles are small. Your skin cannot stop even basic weapons. There is no way your ancestors could do the things in these stories." Jake listened to all of this without getting angry or upset. He had heard it before. Every species in the galaxy thought humans were weak because they looked at human bodies and saw nothing special. They saw creatures with no natural weapons, no armor, no special abilities. They saw a species that needed tools and machines to survive. "You have studied our biology," Jake said quietly. "But have you studied our history?" This question made some of the aliens pause. They had looked at human bodies and human technology. They had read about human wars and human weapons. But most of them had not spent much time learning about what humans had actually done when they were pushed to their limits. "We know your history," Zethkar said with a wave of his clawed hand. "Small wars on one planet, fighting with sticks and stones. Nothing compared to real galactic warfare. You fought each other with primitive weapons for thousands of years," Colonel Zextos added. "Swords and spears and gunpowder weapons. Very simple. Very basic. Nothing like the energy weapons and space battles that real warriors know." Jake nodded slowly. "That is true. We did fight with simple weapons for a long time. But that does not mean the fights were simple." He stood up from his chair. Even standing, Jake was shorter than most of the aliens sitting down. His human body looked small and fragile next to the giant warriors around him. But something in the way he moved made a few of the more experienced fighters pay attention. "Let me ask you something," Jake said, looking around the table. "How many of your species have stories about individual warriors who could change the outcome of entire battles?" The question hung in the air. Several aliens looked at each other, not sure how to answer. "We have legends," General Thukrin said slowly. "Stories of great heroes from the old days. But they are just stories, inspiration for young warriors. Nobody actually believes they are true." "Exactly," Jake said. "You have legends that you know are made up. Stories that you tell to make your children brave. But you do not actually believe that one warrior could fight an army and win." He paused, looking at each alien in turn. "Humans are different. We do not tell our stories to make children brave. We tell them because we remember." The laughter had stopped completely now. The room was quiet except for the soft humming of the station's life support systems. Something in Jake's voice had changed, and the alien warriors could sense that the conversation was moving in a direction they did not expect. "Remember what?" Captain Veltara asked, her crystal body flickering with nervous energy. Jake Morrison smiled, but it was not a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who knew secrets that others did not want to learn. "We remember what we become when we have to." The mood in the room changed fast when Admiral Corvinex turned on the big display screen. He was from the Arachnid Empire, which meant he looked like a giant spider with 8 legs and too many eyes. His body was black and shiny, and when he moved, his legs clicked against the metal floor. "We have a problem," Corvinex said, his voice making a buzzing sound. "A big problem." The hologram in the center of the table showed a map of the galaxy. It was beautiful, with millions of stars twinkling like diamonds. But there were red spots spreading across it like drops of blood in water. The red areas were growing bigger even as they watched. "The Void Collective has started their final attack," Corvinex continued. "They have broken through our defenses in the Kepler sector. 17 star systems have gone dark in the past week." All the laughter stopped. Every alien in the room knew what the Void Collective was, and none of them thought it was funny. The Void Collective was not just another enemy army. They were something much worse. The Void Collective was made up of creatures that worked like a hive mind. They all shared the same thoughts and moved like parts of one giant organism. But that was not the scary part. The scary part was what they did to planets. When the Void Collective took over a world, they did not just conquer it. They ate it. They consumed every living thing on the planet and turned it into more of themselves. Trees, animals, people, even the bacteria in the soil. Everything became part of the collective. When they were done, nothing was left but dead rock floating in space. "How many ships do they have?" asked Captain Veltara. Her crystal body was not sparkling anymore. Now, it looked dull and gray with worry. "Our scouts counted at least 3,000 war vessels," Corvinex replied. "But they keep making more. Every world they consume gives them more resources to build bigger fleets." General Thokrin's silver fur was standing up on his back, which happened when his species got scared or angry. 3,000 ships? That is more than they have ever assembled before. "It gets worse," Corvinex said. He touched a control, and the map zoomed in on the red areas. They are not just attacking random worlds. They are moving in a pattern. Intelligence thinks they are heading for the core systems. The core systems were where the most important worlds were located. Earth was in the core systems. So were the home planets of most of the species sitting around the table. If the Void Collective reached the core systems, billions of people would die. "We need to stop them," Commander Zethkar said. His scales were turning a darker color, which meant he was getting ready to fight. "All of our fleets together might be enough." "Might be," Corvinex agreed. "But we need every ship and every warrior we can get. This is not a time to hold anything back." One by one, the species around the table began volunteering their forces. Commander Zethkar promised 2 battle fleets from the reptilian dominion. Those were big ships with powerful weapons and thousands of soldiers. Captain Veltara said the Crystalline Collective could provide 1 dreadnought wing. Dreadnoughts were the biggest warships in the galaxy, so big that they could destroy entire moons. General Thokran offered 3 assault divisions from the Ursine Federation. His people were famous for being strong fighters who never gave up, even when things looked hopeless. Each species made their promises. The bug-like arachnids would send their fast attack ships. The fish people would provide their underwater assault teams for fighting on ocean worlds. The bird-like creatures would contribute their scout fleets. As each alien spoke, the numbers got bigger. Hundreds of ships, thousands of soldiers, millions of tons of weapons and supplies. It was going to be the biggest military force the galaxy had ever seen. Then it was Jake Morrison's turn. All eyes turned to the human admiral. He sat quietly for a moment, thinking. Everyone could see him doing math in his head, figuring out what Earth could contribute to this massive war effort. "Humans can provide 1 expeditionary force," Jake said finally. "The 3rd Marine Division." The room went silent. Not the good kind of silent where everyone was impressed. The bad kind of silent, where everyone was trying not to say something rude. Colonel Zextos was the first to speak. His tentacles twisted nervously as he talked. Admiral Morrison, how many soldiers are in this division? 3,000 Marines. Jake replied. The silence got worse. 3,000 soldiers sounded like a lot to humans, but compared to what the other species were offering, it was almost nothing. The Ursine Federation was sending 300,000 soldiers. The Reptilian Dominion was sending 2 million. 3,000, General Thokran repeated slowly. That is all? Jake nodded. Earth's military is not as large as yours. We are still building our space forces. 3,000 is what we can spare right now. Captain Veltara tried. To be polite, we appreciate the offer, Admiral. But perhaps humans should stay in support roles for this battle. Medical teams, supply runs, communication support. Things like that. This is not a small fight, Sethkar added. The Void Collective has been the galaxy's worst enemy for over 300 years. They have destroyed 1,000 civilizations. They have weapons that can crack planets in half. This needs experienced warriors. Jake could hear what they were really saying. They thought humans were too weak to fight in a real war. They thought 3,000 human soldiers would just get in the way or get killed quickly. Your mythology is interesting, Colonel Zextos said, trying to sound kind. Your stories are very creative. But fighting the Void Collective is not like fighting dragons in fairy tales. This is real. This is serious. The Void Collective does not care about courage or honor, Dr. Quankle added. They do not feel fear or pain. They just consume everything they touch. You need more than brave stories to fight them. Jake stood up again. This time, several of the aliens leaned back in their chairs. There was something different about the way he moved. Something that made their instincts warn them to be careful. You keep talking about our stories, Jake said. His voice was still calm, but there was an edge to it now. You keep calling them myths and fairy tales, because that is what they are. Sethkar replied, primitive stories from a primitive world. Entertainment for children. Jake walked over to the holographic display. He touched a control, and the view changed to show Earth. The blue and green planet hung in space, looking peaceful and beautiful. It was hard to believe that anything dangerous could come from such a pretty world. Let me tell you something about our stories, Jake said. Something that might change your mind about what humans can do. He turned to face the table full of alien warriors. Each one of them was bigger than him, stronger than him, and more experienced in galactic warfare. But something in Jake's eyes made them all pay attention. Our stories are not just entertainment, Jake continued. They are not just made-up tales to make children feel brave. They are something else entirely. What are they then? General Thokran asked. Jake smiled, but it was not a friendly smile. It was the smile of someone who knew a secret that would change everything. They are warnings, Jake said quietly. Warnings about what happens when you push humans too far. He turned back to the display showing Earth. You want to know why the 3rd Marine Division is the only force we are sending? You want to know why 3,000 human soldiers might be enough? The aliens waited for his answer. Because you have never seen what humans become when everything we love is about to be destroyed, Jake said. You have never seen us when we have nothing left to lose. He paused, looking around the room at the faces of creatures from across the galaxy. But the Void Collective is about to find out. The room was completely quiet now. Even the soft humming of the station's machines seemed to fade away. The alien warriors looked at each other, not sure what to make of Jake's words. Are you saying, Captain Veltara asked slowly, that your fairy tales are somehow real? Jake turned to face her directly. I am saying that what you call fairy tales are memories. Genetic memories of what humans have done before when we faced extinction. That is impossible, Dr. Quentel said. Your species has no special abilities. No enhanced strength or speed. No natural weapons or armor. You are right, Jake agreed. We do not have any of those things, normally. What do you mean, normally? Commander Zethkar demanded. Jake walked back to his chair, but he did not sit down. Instead, he stood behind it, his hands resting on the back. I mean that humans are different when we are cornered, Jake said. When our families are threatened. When our children are in danger. When everything we have built is about to be destroyed. He looked around the table one more time. We become the heroes from our stories. We become the warriors from our myths. We become legends. The aliens stared at him, not sure whether to laugh or be concerned. And the Void Collective, Jake added quietly, is about to learn why our ancestors told those stories in the first place. Jake Morrison looked at the faces around the table. He could see doubt in their eyes. They thought he was making up stories to make humans sound more important than they really were. But Jake remembered things that these aliens had never heard. About things that happened when the galaxy was not watching. Let me tell you about the first time humans almost went extinct, Jake said. His voice got quieter, like he was sharing a secret. It was 200 years ago, long before most of your species knew Earth existed. He touched the control panel and changed the display. Now it showed historical records from the galactic archives. Old documents and battle reports appeared in the air above the table. The Graxter Empire invaded Earth, Jake continued. You might remember them. Admiral Corvinex. Your people helped us drive them away. Eventually. Several aliens nodded. The Graxter had been one of the most feared civilizations in the galaxy. They conquered planets for fun and enslaved entire species. They had weapons that could turn mountains into dust and ships that blocked out the sun. Then one day, they just disappeared. Nobody knew why. What you do not know, Jake said, is what happened during the 7 years when Earth was cut off from all outside contact. 7 years when 10 billion humans were completely alone against an enemy that wanted to kill every single one of us. The hologram changed to show Earth surrounded by dark, scary-looking ships. The Graxter vessels were huge and covered with spikes and weapons. They looked like giant metal insects ready to sting. They did not just invade our planet, Jake explained. They hunted us. They thought it would be fun to see how long humans could survive. They burned our cities to test new weapons. They took our children for experiments. They killed people just to watch them die. The room was getting quieter. Even the aliens who had been joking before were listening carefully now. The Graxter had conquered hundreds of worlds before Earth. Every other species they fought gave up within months. Some surrendered in weeks, but humans ... Jake paused and looked around the table. Humans did something different. What did? They do? Asked Navigator Piptel. Her squeaky voice was barely above a whisper. We remembered, Jake said simply. We remembered things that had been sleeping in our genes for thousands of years. Things that only wake up when we have no other choice. He changed the display again. Now it showed a woman in a torn military uniform. She was small and looked like she worked in an office, not on a battlefield. Her name tag said, Rodriguez E. This is Commander Elena Rodriguez, Jake said. Before the invasion, she was a marine biologist. She studied fish and coral reefs. She spent her days underwater, taking pictures of pretty sea creatures. She never hurt anyone in her life. The aliens looked at the picture. Elena Rodriguez looked completely ordinary. She was shorter than most humans, with kind eyes and a gentle smile. She looked like someone who would feed stray cats and help old people cross the street. The Graxter destroyed her research station, Jake continued. They killed her entire team while she watched. 23 scientists who just wanted to learn about ocean life. The Grexter thought it was funny. Jake touched another control. Now the display showed security footage from the research station. It was grainy and hard to see clearly, but they could make out shapes moving in the distance. "This is what happened next," Jake said. The footage showed Elena Rodriguez standing alone in the ruins of her laboratory. 3 Grexter warriors were walking toward her. Each one was twice her size and covered in battle armor. They carried weapons that could cut through steel dot. The aliens around the table leaned forward to see better. They expected to watch a small human woman get killed quickly by superior enemies. Instead, they saw something impossible. Elena moved. But she did not move like a normal person. She moved like lightning, like water, like something that was not quite human anymore. Her first punch hit the lead Grexter in the chest and sent him flying backward into a wall. The sound of his armor cracking was loud enough to hear through the recording. "That cannot be right," General Thokrin said. "The footage must be damaged." "Keep watching," Jake replied. The second Grexter fired his weapon at Elena. The energy blast should have turned her into ash. Instead, she was not there anymore. She had moved so fast that the camera could barely follow her. She appeared behind the alien and grabbed his head with her bare hands. When she twisted, there was a sound like breaking branches. The third Grexter was the biggest and strongest. He threw away his weapon and attacked Elena with his claws and teeth. The aliens watching expected this to be the end of the small human woman. They were wrong. Elena caught the Grexter's claws in her hands and stopped his attack completely. Then she lifted him over her head, all 800 pounds of him, and threw him through the concrete wall of the building. When the dust settled, 3 of the galaxy's most feared warriors were dead. Elena Rodriguez stood in the middle of the destruction, completely unharmed. "This is fake," Commander Zethkar said. But his voice shook a little. "Humans cannot do this. It breaks the laws of physics." "There are thousands of hours of footage like this," Jake replied, "and thousands of witnesses from your own species who saw it happen." He changed the display again. This time it showed man in farmer's clothes standing in a field of destroyed crops. His name was Ben Carter, and he looked like he had never been in a fight in his life. "Lieutenant Ben Carter grew corn in Kansas," Jake said. "He raised cattle and pigs. He had a wife and 3 children. He went to church every Sunday and helped his neighbors fix their fences. He was the most peaceful man you could imagine." The footage showed Ben Carter's farm after the Grexter attack. The house was a pile of burning wood. The fields were black and smoking. In the distance, alien ships were flying away after destroying everything this man had worked his whole life to build. "They killed his family," Jake said quietly. "His wife, his children, even his dog. They burned everything and laughed while they did it." The camera focused on Ben Carter's face. At first, he just looked sad and lost. But then something changed. His expression became different. His eyes got darker. His whole body started to shake, not with fear, but with something else. "Watch what happened next," Jake said. Ben Carter opened his mouth and screamed. But it was not a normal scream. It was something primal and terrifying, like the roar of an ancient beast. The sound was so loud and so full of rage that birds fell out of the sky. Windows broke in buildings miles away. The Grexter soldiers, who were still in the area, heard that scream and stopped what they were doing. Even through their armor and their weapons, they could feel something that made their alien instincts tell them to run. "One man," Jake said. "One farmer who had never hurt anyone in his life. But when they took everything he loved, he became something else." The footage showed Ben Carter walking toward a group of Grexter soldiers. They fired their weapons at him, but he kept walking. The energy blasts that should have killed him just made him angrier. When he reached them, what happened next was too violent for the recording equipment to capture clearly. Your military reports from that time, Jake continued, describe humans who could not be stopped by normal weapons. Soldiers who could lift, vehicles with their bare hands, warriors who could run faster than your hovering bikes, people who seemed to ignore pain and injuries that should have been fatal. He brought up more documents. These were official reports from alien military commanders, written in different languages and filed in the archives of multiple species. The Arachnid Empire's scouts reported humans who fought like demons from the dark void. Jake read from one document. The Crystalline Collective's medical teams recorded human soldiers with adrenaline levels that should have killed them, but instead made them stronger. More reports appeared. Each one described the same thing: humans doing impossible things when they were pushed beyond their limits. The Reptilian Dominion's intelligence files mention humans who seemed to anticipate attacks before they happened, who moved like they could see the future. The Ursine Federation's battle logs describe individual humans taking on entire squads of armored soldiers and winning. Captain Veltara's crystal body was flickering rapidly, which meant she was very confused or scared. But this is impossible. Your species has no special abilities, no enhanced genes or cybernetic implants. You are right, Jake agreed. We do not have any of those things. What we have is something different, something that only shows up when we absolutely need it. What? Asked Dr. Quintal. Jake looked around the table at all the alien faces staring at him. We have the ability to become more than what we are. When everything we care about is threatened, when death is certain, when there is no hope left, something wakes up inside us. He paused, letting that sink in. Every human carries the potential to become the heroes from our stories. Most of us will never need to use it. Most of us will live normal, peaceful lives. But when the moment comes, when survival depends on it, we can access something that has been sleeping in our DNA since the beginning. Genetic memory, Colonel Zexto said slowly. You are talking about genetic memory, not just memory, Jake corrected. Genetic programming. Instructions written into our cells that tell us how to become something more than human when we have to. The aliens were quiet now. The aliens around the table stared at Jake Morrison like he had just told them the sky was green and water flowed upward. What he was saying went against everything they knew about biology and physics and common sense. You must be talking about some kind of genetic modification, Captain Veltara said. Her crystal body was dim now, like a light bulb running out of power. Secret experiments or combat drugs that make humans stronger. Jake shook his head. No technology, no drugs. Number. Genetic engineering. Just humans being what we have always been when we are pushed to the absolute limit. He touched the control panel again, and new documents appeared in the holographic display. These were not human records. These were reports written by the alien species sitting around the table. These are your own files, Jake said. Medical. Reports, battle analyses, witness testimonies from dozens of different civilizations. All describing the same thing. Humans doing impossible things when they had no other choice. Dr. Quintal leaned forward to read the documents. His large black eyes moved quickly as he scanned the data. These readings cannot be correct. This human's heart rate shows 200 beats per minute, but he was still fighting effectively. That should have caused cardiac arrest. This medical scan shows a human female with 3 broken ribs, a punctured lung, and massive blood loss, added Captain Veltara, reading another report. But according to the battle footage, she kept fighting for another 2 hours. More aliens began reading their own species records. Each document told the same impossible story. Humans who should have been dead but kept fighting. Humans who lifted weights that should have crushed them. Humans who moved faster than their muscles should have allowed. Look at this one, General Thokran said, his silver fur standing up on his back. A human soldier named Danny Brooks. According to our sensors, he was completely surrounded by 47 Graxter warriors, all of them armed with energy weapons and battle armor. The footage from that battle played in the hologram. Danny Brooks was a young man who looked like he worked in a store or an office. He was not big or muscular. He did not look like a warrior at all. But when the Graxter closed in around him, something changed. Danny's movements became fluid and deadly. He moved like he could see attacks coming before they happened. He caught energy blasts with his bare hands and threw them back at his enemies. When a Graxter warrior swung a sword at his head, Danny grabbed the blade and crushed it into metal powder. 47 enemies, General Thokran continued, his voice getting quieter. All dead, one human, not even wounded. Here is another one, Colonel Zextos said, his tentacles shaking as he read. A human woman named Maria Santos. She was a teacher before the invasion, taught mathematics to children. But when the Graxter attacked her school, the report showed Maria Santos standing in front of a burning school building. Behind her were 200 human children, all under 10 years old. In front of her were 30 Graxter soldiers coming to capture the children for experiments. Maria Santos was 5 feet tall and weighed maybe 100 pounds. She looked like a strong wind could knock her over. But when those soldiers came, for her students, she became something else entirely. The battle footage was hard to watch, not because it was violent, but because it was impossible. Maria moved like a force of nature. She threw grown Graxter warriors around like they were toys. When they shot at her, she was already somewhere else. When they tried to get past her to reach the children, she appeared in front of them like a wall made of fury and determination. 30 soldiers, Colonel Zextos whispered. All dead, 200 children saved. One human teacher who should not have been able to fight at all. Jake let them read more reports. Story after story of ordinary humans doing extraordinary things. A mechanic named Bob Wilson who held up a collapsing bridge while civilians escaped underneath. A librarian named Susan Davis who fought through an entire Graxter command post to rescue captured humans. A cook named Tony Garcia who single-handedly destroyed a Graxter weapon that was going to level a city. Every single one of these people was normal before the invasion, Jake explained. They had normal jobs, normal lives, normal human bodies. But when their world was threatened, when their families were in danger, when everything they loved was about to be destroyed, they became something more. But how? Dr. Quintal demanded. What mechanism could possibly allow this? Your bones are not strong enough to support that kind of strength. Your muscles do not have the fiber density to generate that much force. Jake smiled sadly. You are thinking about this wrong. You are looking at human bodies and seeing limits. But what if those limits are not real? What if they are just safety measures? The aliens looked confused. Think about it, Jake continued. Your bodies have built-in restrictions to keep you safe. You cannot run so fast that you tear your muscles. You cannot lift so much that you break your bones. You cannot fight so hard that you damage your heart. These limits keep you alive during normal times. He paused, making sure they were, following his explanation. But what if a species evolved with the ability to remove those limits when survival depended on it? What if humans could temporarily override every safety mechanism in their bodies and use 100% of their potential instead of the 10% we normally access? The idea hung in the air like a challenge to everything the aliens thought they knew about biology. That would be incredibly dangerous, Captain Veltara said. Using that much of your body's potential would cause massive damage. Torn muscles, broken bones, organ failure. Yes, Jake agreed. It would, and it does. Most humans who access their full potential die within hours or days from the damage causes to their bodies. The room got very quiet. But sometimes, Jake continued, sometimes that sacrifice is worth it. Sometimes saving your family or your species is more important than your own life. He brought up more footage. This time, it showed the aftermath of human battles during the Graxther invasion. Humans sitting exhausted in the ruins of cities, their bodies clearly damaged from whatever they had done to win their fights. Elena Rodriguez died 3 days after she fought those Graxther warriors, Jake said quietly. Her heart gave out from the strain. Ben Carter lasted a week before his muscles tore themselves apart from the inside. Danny Brooks survived for 2 months, but his bones were cracked in 17 places. The aliens stared at the images of these human heroes, now understanding the true cost of their impossible victories. They knew, Jake said. Somehow, on some level, they all knew that using their full potential would kill them. But they did it anyway, because that is what humans do when everything we care about is threatened. Commander Zethkar's scales had turned a pale green color, which meant he was feeling sick. You are saying that your entire species has the ability to become super soldiers, but only if you are willing to die for it? Not just willing, Jake corrected. Eager. When a human accesses their full potential, they do not think about the cost to themselves. They only think about protecting what they love. He stood up and walked to the holographic display. With a touch, he brought up images of human families, human cities, human children playing in parks. This is what we fight for, Jake said. Not for glory or conquest or territory. We fight for the right of our children to grow up in a safe world. We fight for the right of our parents to grow old in peace. We fight for the idea that good people should be able to live normal, happy lives. He turned back to face the aliens. And when someone threatens those things, when someone tries to take away everything we love, we become the heroes from our stories. We become the warriors from our legends. We become unstoppable. Jake returned to his seat, but somehow the atmosphere in the room had changed completely. The aliens no longer saw a weak human trying to sound important. They saw something far more dangerous. The Graxther Empire learned this lesson, Jake said quietly. They thought they were hunting weak prey. Instead, they woke up something that had been sleeping for thousands of years. Something that remembered how to fight gods and dragons and demons. He looked around the table at the faces of creatures from across the galaxy. The Void Collective is about to learn the same lesson. And when they do, they will understand why human myths are not just stories. They are promises. Promises about what we become when everything we love is in danger. The room was completely silent now. Even the soft humming of the station's life. Support systems seemed to have stopped. 3,000 Marines, Jake said. 3,000 humans who have trained their entire lives to access that ancient power when they need it. 3,000 warriors who are ready to become legends. He smiled, but it was not a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who knew terrible secrets. The Void Collective has never faced anything like that before, and they never will again. 6 weeks passed after the meeting at the Galactic Defense Station. The alien fleets had assembled in the Kepler sector, ready to fight the biggest battle in galactic history. Thousands of ships from dozens of species formed a wall of metal and weapons between the Void Collective and the core systems. At first, the reports coming back to the defense station sounded normal. The kind of news that everyone expected from a massive space battle. Reptilian Dominion fleet engaging enemy forces in Grid 12, came a message from Commander Zethkar. Taking heavy casualties, but holding position. Crystalline Collective dreadnoughts. Firing on Void Collective mothership, reported Captain Veltara. Minimal damage to enemy vessel. They are adapting to our weapons. The battle reports kept coming in hour after hour. The alien fleets were fighting bravely, but the Void Collective was just as strong as everyone had feared. Their ships were huge and seemed to fix themselves when they got damaged. Their weapons could punch holes through the thickest armor. Worst of all, they never got tired or scared or confused, and something strange started happening. Ursine Federation assault teams, reporting unusual activity in Grid 7 Alpha, came a transmission from General Thokron. His voice sounded confused. Enemy forces are retreating from forward positions. Reason unknown. That was weird. The Void Collective never retreated. They just kept attacking until everything was dead, or they ran out of ships. More strange reports followed. Arachnid scouts detecting explosions behind enemy lines. Admiral Corvinex reported. Void Collective command ships are going silent. We cannot determine the cause. This is Crystal Wing Leader, came another message. We are seeing Void Collective. Motherships losing power and drifting. Something is happening inside their ships, but we cannot tell what. The aliens at the defense station gathered around their communication equipment, trying to make sense of what they were hearing. The battle had been going badly for the galactic forces. They were outnumbered and outgunned. But suddenly, the Void Collective was having problems. Where are the human forces? Asked Colonel Zextos. Has anyone heard from the 3rd Marine Division? Nobody had. The human ships had been assigned to a support position far from the main battle. They were supposed to help with supply runs and rescue damaged ships. But for the past 2 days, there had been no communication from them at all. Then came a message that made everyone stop talking. This is Captain Lisa Kane of the 3rd Marine Division. Came a voice over the communication. System. The signal was weak and full of static, but they could hear her clearly enough. Grid 12 through 18 are secured. Repeat, Grid 12 through 18 are secured. The aliens looked at each other in confusion. Grid 12 through 18 was deep in enemy territory. It was supposed to be completely controlled by the Void Collective. No allied forces were even close to those areas. Captain Kane, Commander Zethkar transmitted back. Please clarify your position. Our charts show Grid 12 through 18 as enemy territory. Not anymore, came Lisa Kane's reply. We have eliminated 6 Void Collective hive minds and are moving on the primary cluster. The enemy is having trouble understanding what they are fighting. The transmission crackled with interference, but they could hear sounds in the background. Not the sounds of normal space battle with energy weapons and explosions. These were different sounds. Sounds of metal being torn apart by bare hands and alien screams that were cut off suddenly. How did you get behind enemy lines? Asked Admiral Corvinex. Our scouts reported those areas as heavily defended. There was a pause before Lisa Kane answered. When she spoke again, her voice was different, calmer, but also more dangerous. We walked, she said simply. A camera signal came through a moment later. The aliens could see Captain Kane standing on what looked like the bridge of a Void Collective. Command ship. Her marine uniform was torn and covered with black alien blood. Her hair was messy, and her face was dirty, but her eyes, her eyes, were like nothing the aliens had ever seen before. They were still human eyes, but there was something behind them that was older and more primal than any civilized creature should. Possess. Captain Kane, Dr. Quintal said carefully. What is your current status? Do you need medical assistance? Lisa Kane smiled, and several aliens took a step back from their screens. It was not a cruel smile, or an angry smile. It was the satisfied smile of a predator that had just finished hunting. We are fine, Doctor. Better than fine, actually. We are exactly what we need to be. Behind her, other humans moved through the captured ship. The aliens watching could see that these Marines moved differently than normal people. They flowed like water, but struck like lightning. They seemed to know where enemies were hiding before they could see them. When Void Collective drones attacked, the humans destroyed them with their bare hands like they were swatting flies. "This is impossible," whispered Captain Deltara. "Void Collective ships are supposed to be impregnable. Their security systems should prevent boarding." "Their security systems work fine against normal enemies," Lisa Kane replied, apparently hearing the transmission. "But we are not normal enemies." She turned to look directly at the camera, and every alien watching felt a chill run through their bodies. "We are the nightmares that nightmares have. We are the monsters that monsters fear. We are what humans become when everything we love is threatened with extinction." The transmission cut to static for a moment, then came back, showing a different view. This was outside the Void Collective ship, in space itself. Somehow, impossibly, humans in basic spacesuits were moving from ship to ship without any kind of transport vehicles. They were not flying. They were jumping from one massive alien spacecraft to another, across distances that should have been impossible to cross. And when they landed on enemy ships, those ships stopped working very quickly. "How are they moving in space like that?" General Thokrin asked, but nobody had an answer. More reports started coming in from across the battle zone. Void Collective forces were collapsing everywhere, not being defeated in normal combat, but simply disappearing. One minute an area would be full of enemy ships, and the next minute those ships would be drifting dead in space. "Grid 19 through 25 are clear," came another transmission from a different human voice. This one belonged to Sergeant Mike Davis, who sounded like he was having the time of his life. "Moving on to the primary hive cluster. These things really do not like it when you get inside their ships." "Sergeant Davis," Commander Zethkar transmitted, "how many enemy vessels have you encountered?" "Stopped counting after the first 100, Mike Davis replied cheerfully. "They keep trying the same tactics. Overwhelming numbers, superior firepower, hive mind coordination. Works great against normal enemies." There was a sound in the background, like metal being ripped apart. "But we are not normal enemies," Davis continued. "We are what happens when you threaten human children. We are what you get when you try to destroy human families. We are the reason our ancestors told stories about heroes who could fight armies and win." The final report came 18 hours later. Captain Lisa Kane's voice was tired now, but satisfied. "Kepler sector is secure," she announced. "All Void Collective forces have been eliminated or have fled the area. Primary hive mind clusters destroyed. Secondary command structures disabled. The threat has been neutralized." The communication system was quiet for a long moment. "Captain Kane," Admiral Corvin X finally asked, "what are your casualties?" 17 Marines injured," Lisa Kane replied. "No deaths. The enemy never really figured out how to fight us effectively." "And enemy casualties?" asked Dr. Quinn Singlequotes Tal. Another pause. "Complete," Lisa Kane said simply. "The Void Collective has been eliminated as a threat to galactic civilization. Their surviving forces are fleeing beyond the galactic rim. Our intelligence suggests they will not return." When Admiral Jake Morrison returned to the defense station 3 days later, the atmosphere was completely different. The alien warriors, who had mocked human mythology just weeks before, now watched him with a mixture of respect and fear. Jake looked exactly the same as before. Same weathered face, same quiet manner, same simple uniform. But now everyone knew what he represented. He was not just a human officer. He was the spokesperson for a species that could become living legends when they needed to. "The galaxy is safe," Jake reported to the assembled council. "The Void Collective's remaining forces have withdrawn beyond our borders. Analysis suggests they will not attempt another invasion." General Thokron spoke first, his voice full of respect that had not been there before. Admiral Morrison, on behalf of the Ursine Federation, I apologize for doubting human capabilities. Similar apologies came from around the table. Each alien species formally acknowledged that they had been wrong about humans. That Jake accepted their apologies graciously, but his expression remained serious. I need you all to understand something important, he said. What you witnessed was humanity at war, fighting for our survival and the survival of our allies. In our normal lives, we are teachers and farmers and scientists. We build things instead of destroying them. We create art and music and literature. He paused, looking at each alien representative. But when something threatens what we protect, when extinction comes knocking on our door, we become what our stories always said we were. We become the heroes from our myths.